You are completely wrong about Gohan Beast. Yup, you heard that right. A lot of people completely misunderstand this transformation and, more importantly, they misunderstand Gohan's entire journey leading up to it. Whenever Gohan Beast gets brought up, the same criticisms always appear. People say it came out of nowhere, that it wasn't earned, that Gohan didn't train enough, or that it was just another random rage boost. But the more I looked into Beast and the more I went back through Gohan's character arc, the more I realized that most of these criticisms don't actually hold up. In fact, I would go as far as saying that Dragon Ball Z itself laid the foundation for Beast years before Superhero was even a thing. No, I'm not saying Toriyama planned Gohan Beast decades in advance, because that would be ridiculous. We all know Toriyama was famous for making things up as he went along. However, what I am saying is that Dragon Ball left certain aspects of Gohan's character intentionally open-ended, and when Beast finally arrived, it ended up fitting those aspects almost perfectly. What's even crazier is that we actually saw a glimpse of what Beast represents back in Dragon Ball Z. But I'll touch on that later, because before we can talk about foreshadowing, we first need to understand what Beast actually is, because this is where the biggest misconception starts. A lot of people look at Beast and think it's just another random transformation, but Beast actually has a pretty straightforward explanation. According to Toriyama himself, Beast is an evolution of the ultimate state. That's it. That's the explanation. The ultimate state allowed Gohan to draw out his full potential without relying on traditional Super Saiyan transformations. Instead of stacking another transformation on top of himself, Gohan was bringing out the power that already existed within him. Beast takes that exact concept and pushes it even further. The form plays directly into one of the most important aspects of Gohan's character, which is his ability to draw out absurd amounts of hidden power through emotional triggers. At the same time, it also plays into a core aspect of Saiyan biology itself. Saiyans evolve through intense emotional experiences, especially rage. We have seen this throughout Dragon Ball over and over again. Because of that, Beast isn't simply Ultimate Gohan, but stronger. It's more like an evolved version of Ultimate. In many ways, it functions similarly to how Super Saiyan 2 evolved from Super Saiyan 1. Ultimate is the foundation. Beast is the next step. And because Beast is built on top of Ultimate, it inherits the same philosophy. The entire purpose of Ultimate was to go beyond normal limits by accessing hidden potential. Beast takes that concept and amplifies it even further. It becomes a form that constantly evolves, adapts, and pushes beyond its own limitations. Whenever Gohan is placed in situations where he needs more power to survive or protect the people he cares about. Now here's where things start getting really interesting. Beast doesn't just explain Gohan's power progression, it actually completes Gohan's character. I know that's going to make some people angry, because a lot of fans like to say Gohan's story ended in Dragon Ball Z, but I honestly don't think that's true. Dragon Ball Z completed one chapter of Gohan's story, but it never fully completed the character himself. There were still unresolved aspects of Gohan's development that remained open-ended, and you can actually see evidence of this during the Buu Saga. During the Buu Saga, it's stated multiple times, including in various guide materials, that Gohan struggles to access the same rage-fueled power he displayed as Super Saiyan 2 during the Cell games. He still has the potential, he still has the power, but he can't draw upon it in the same way anymore. And that's an incredibly important detail, because rage has always been at the center of Gohan's biggest breakthroughs. Think about Gohan's most important moments throughout the series. When he headbutted Raditz as a child. When he exploded against Frieza's forces on Namek. When he transformed into Super Saiyan 2 against Cell. Every major leap Gohan has ever made came from an emotional explosion. That's not a coincidence. That's literally how his character has always been written. Unlike Goku, who gradually grows stronger through constant training and self-improvement, Gohan has always been someone whose hidden power erupts whenever his emotions push him past his limits. And this brings us to one of the most interesting scenes in the entire Buu Saga. While Elder Kai is performing the ritual to unlock Gohan's ultimate state, Majin Buu is actively destroying everything. People are dying. Gohan's friends are in danger. The world is falling apart around him. Meanwhile, Elder Kai is dancing around, taking forever to finish the ritual, and Gohan becomes increasingly frustrated until he finally snaps and yells at him to hurry up. Now, am I saying Toriyama planned Gohan Beast 20 years in advance? Probably not. But what I am saying is that when you go back and look at that scene today, it lines up with Beast in an eerily perfect way. Gohan is sitting there with his latent potential being unlocked, while becoming increasingly emotional because the people he cares about are in danger. Whether it was intentional foreshadowing or not, it ended up fitting the entire concept behind Beast almost perfectly. In many ways, that scene feels like the earliest glimpse of what Beast would eventually become. The only reason Gohan didn't reach Beast back then is because either he simply didn't have enough power available to trigger that evolution yet, or because his ultimate state hadn't been fully developed enough at that point in the story. Either way, the framework was already there, and honestly, that's one of the things that makes Toriyama such a fascinating writer. People always talk about how much he improvised throughout Dragon Ball, but that's exactly what makes moments like this so impressive. He would leave certain ideas open-ended, revisit them years later, and somehow they would fit together in ways that felt almost intentional. Whether he planned it or not, Beast ends up feeling like a natural extension of concepts that had existed around Gohan for years. But understanding Beast itself isn't enough, because now we have to talk about Gohan's actual journey to reaching it. And this is where I think most fans completely misunderstand what Dragon Ball Super was trying to do with Gohan. Because after Dragon Ball Z, Gohan doesn't just stop developing. He actually enters a very different type of character arc. One that isn't about constantly getting stronger like Goku, but instead about learning how to properly control the insane amount of power he already has. After Resurrection F, Gohan realizes something important about himself. His ultimate state is not something he can just ignore and expect it to work at full efficiency. His body is out of shape, and even though the power is still there, he cannot properly access or maintain it under pressure. That's why he starts training again. Not to become a new fighter like Goku, but simply to regain stability over what he already possesses. And that distinction is extremely important when people talk about Gohan not training. Because Gohan's training has never been about climbing a power ladder. It has always been about controlling something that is already too big for him to handle if left unchecked. Then we move into the Tournament of Power, and this is where Piccolo's influence becomes one of the most important parts of Gohan's modern character. Piccolo doesn't train Gohan to make him stronger. He trains Gohan to stop repeating the same mistake he made in the past, which is losing himself whenever he gains power. Because Gohan's real weakness has never been raw strength. His weakness has always been psychological. Every time he gains power, he either becomes too emotional or too overconfident, and that leads to mistakes in battle. Piccolo understands this better than anyone, which is why his approach is completely different from Goku's. He doesn't push Gohan toward more power, he pushes him toward control. And you can clearly see the results of that training in the Tournament of Power itself. Gohan is no longer the same unstable fighter he used to be. He is calmer, more analytical, and far more aware of his surroundings. Even when he powers up, he doesn't lose himself in emotion the way he used to in earlier arcs. He fights with intent, not instinct alone. That alone is already a major shift in his character. But things don't stop there. Because when we reach the Moro arc, we start seeing the next stage of Gohan's development, and this is where people really underestimate him. The Moro arc is not about Gohan getting a flashy new transformation or suddenly jumping ahead in power. It's about him applying everything Piccolo taught him in a real battle scenario where the stakes are far higher and the consequences are immediate. This is where Gohan starts combining two things that were previously separate in his character: his raw latent potential and his disciplined warrior mindset. And when those two things start working together, you start seeing the foundation of something much bigger than people realize. Because Beast is not just rage on its own, it is rage controlled by experience. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions people have is that Gohan doesn't train at all. That idea is simply not accurate when you actually look at what the story shows and tells us. After Resurrection F, it is explicitly stated that Gohan begins training again to maintain his body and stabilize his ultimate form. Even if we don't see every single training session on screen, the results are consistently shown in his performance across later arcs. In the Tournament of Power, Gohan is already performing far above what someone of his out-of-shape reputation should be capable of. He is not just surviving, he is actively adapting against opponents far stronger than what he used to handle. Against Kefla, for example, he doesn't just power up randomly. He adjusts mid-fight, analyzes the situation, and pushes himself strategically. That is not a lack of training. That is controlled development. And then in the Moro arc, we see him operating at an even higher level of awareness, even if the focus of the arc shifts toward other characters. The key point is that Gohan is not stagnant. He is refining his control over time, even if his growth is not always highlighted in big transformation moments like Goku. So when people say Gohan's beast form came out of nowhere, what they are really missing is the slow layered development of control over power that has been building since Resurrection F. Then we arrive at Dragon Ball Superhero, and this is where everything finally comes together. Gohan is not starting from scratch here. He already has control over Ultimate. He already has experience from multiple arcs, and the movie even confirms something important that people tend to overlook. Gohan has been training in secret, and he has even learned techniques like the Special Beam Cannon, which shows a level of deliberate preparation rather than random power gain. So when the Gamma fight happens, Gohan is already stable. He is not struggling to access his power anymore, which means the trigger for Beast is not physical growth, it is emotional collapse, and that is the key difference. Because when Piccolo is nearly killed by Cell Max, something inside Gohan breaks in the exact same way it always has throughout the series. Not because he suddenly got stronger, but because he is pushed into the exact same emotional state that has always defined his biggest breakthroughs. Now this is where another misunderstanding comes in, which is the idea that Beast somehow undermines Goku. But that argument only makes sense if you assume all characters in Dragon Ball are supposed to follow the same growth system, which they never have. Goku grows through constant training, discipline, and breaking his limits repeatedly through experience. Gohan grows through unlocking and stabilizing what already exists inside him, triggered by emotional extremes. These are two completely different character designs operating under completely different rules. So Beast doesn't replace Goku's journey, it completes Gohan's. Goku's journey is about surpassing limits through endless training. Gohan's journey is about mastering the potential already inside him. Those are fundamentally different character arcs. Beast doesn't invalidate Goku's effort, it validates Gohan's. And that's why I love it. Because Beast represents Gohan finally mastering the lessons he failed to learn during the Cell Saga. The lessons Piccolo tried to teach him. The lessons Ultimate was building toward. The lessons his entire character has revolved around. In many ways, Beast is Gohan redeeming his past mistakes. And that's why Piccolo almost dying matters so much. It's a callback, a direct parallel. Just like Goku's death pushed Gohan forward in the Cell Saga, Piccolo's near-death pushes him forward here. The movie is essentially Gohan confronting his past and finally overcoming it. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have one major complaint, and it's a big one. Cell Max. Honestly, I think bringing back Cell imagery was a mistake. Not because Beast doesn't work, not because Gohan doesn't deserve the transformation, but because it made the entire thing feel too much like Cell Saga 2.0. Personally, I would have preferred a completely different villain. Keep the exact same Beast transformation. Keep the exact same emotional climax. Keep the exact same themes. Just give us a different antagonist. That's genuinely my biggest complaint. Not Beast itself, just the presentation around it. Now for a fun bonus. Goku's Super Saiyan 4 from Daima is basically the closest thing we'll ever get to a Goku version of Beast. Think about it. Beast is the result of an emotional awakening after Ultimate unlocked Gohan's potential. Meanwhile, Neva used magic to trigger a similar mutation process in Goku. The difference is that Goku didn't require the emotional shock. Neva forced the process using magic, but conceptually, they're very similar. And honestly, Dragon Ball has been making something increasingly obvious. Saiyans evolve through the heart. Look at Super Saiyan. Look at Beast. Look at Ikari. Look at Ultra Ego. Look at True Ultra Instinct. Look at Bardock's strange evolutionary bursts. The one thing they all have in common is intense emotional stimulation. The heart changes, the Saiyan mutates, the power evolves. And considering the heart is also tied directly to Ki, I don't think that's a coincidence at all. Dragon Ball keeps connecting emotional growth, mutation, and power evolution. And Beast is simply the most extreme version of that concept we have seen so far. So no, Gohan Beast is not an Asspull. It is not random, and it is not poorly written within the context of Gohan's arc. It is the culmination of everything his character has been building toward since Dragon Ball Z. Now, whether you like that direction or not is completely up to you, but you cannot honestly say it came out of nowhere, because the evidence has been sitting there for years. We just didn't connect the dots until now, and that is what makes it so interesting in hindsight. And yeah, that's about it. Now it's time for shout-out time. From the previous video, shout out to no one who commented, "I thought you were gonna say GT has bad story and animation, but most of the things you said are facts." And honestly, I'm glad I was able to provide some genuine criticisms, instead of just blindly hating on the show. But yeah, that's about it for today's video. Like the video, subscribe, we're trying to hit 25,000 subscribers, and until next time, take care and see ya.